You lost your last argument, didn't you? I know why. You tried to use facts and logic. Big mistake. Humans are emotional creatures, not Wikipedia pages. If you want to win, you don't need to be right, you need to be smart. Today, I'll teach you 7 FBI-level psychological tricks to control any conversation and win every argument without raising your voice. Trick 1. The Ransberger Pivot. Agree with their anger, then steer the car. Never say calm down, it's a death wish. Facts. Arguments aren't won by pretending the heat isn't there. The Ransberger Pivot insists you meet that heat with precise validation, then steer the talk towards something workable. Never say calm down. That line hands them the steering wheel and closes off momentum. If you want to keep a room from turning into a shouting match, you learn to ride the emotion, not push it aside. First comes you naming the emotion with clarity. You don't pretend to feel nothing while they're angry. You reflect it back in a compact, specific way. You might say, "You're furious about how this is going," and first hear that. Short, sharp, human. Then you show you understand why it matters to them, not just why it matters to you. That acknowledgement buys you time and buys you influence, because people relax when their feelings aren't being dismissed. After that, you pivot toward a practical path. The pivot isn't a lecture. It's a proposal that links their anger to a concrete outcome they can see, feel, and test. Try this with a spouse over a messy kitchen. They slam the sink, complain about chores piling up, and the room hums with tension. You respond with, "You're frustrated because this keeps happening and it leaks into the whole evening." Then you offer a plan. Let's set 2 simple rules for a week. One person handles dishes for the night, first handle the other, and we'll review on Friday for a quick adjustment. No moral sermons, no grand promises, just a small, repeatable system. If they push back, don't retreat into fault-finding. Restate the goal: a smoother morning, less shouting, more time together. Offer a measurable check-in and a fair trade that respects both sides. Now apply it to asking for a raise. Your boss isn't failing to see your value. They're reacting to a risk you both share about the department's budget or priorities. You acknowledge the friction. First know why you're cautious about compensation right now. Then you attach a plan. Here's what first VE done in the last quarter to move the needle, and here's how first'll sustain it. If we agree on a formal review in 60 days, first'll demonstrate progress with 3 clear metrics. That's not begging. That's presenting a professional, observable path forward. If the conversation veers into defensiveness, offer a recalibrated proposal rather than a retreat. You're signaling that you understand constraints, while still insisting on a fair, visible outcome. In practice, your tone matters more than your logic. Slow down your pace when emotions spike. Use calm, concrete language instead of theoretical arguments. Summarize what you heard and what you'll do next, so there's no fog about expectations. If anger stays high, propose a short pause and a recheck time. The pivot should feel like a collaboration, not a confrontation. Return to the shared goal, then present your plan as a joint solution rather than a personal victory. This is how you steer the car without crashing it, and you do it with a touch of confidence, a dash of irony, and a clear path forward that anyone can buy into. Trick 2. The Socratic Method. Stop making statements. Ask questions until they trap themselves. The Socratic Method relies on questions to reveal beliefs rather than pushing statements. You guide the other person toward their own contradictions instead of delivering your own arguments. In practice, you ask, you listen, and you map their claims back to them. Begin with precise clarifications and simple checks of terms. What exactly do you mean by overworked? How many hours? Which tasks count? What would change if those hours dropped by 20%? The point is to anchor the conversation in specifics, not vibes. Then you probe for evidence. Ask for concrete examples and measurable facts, not general vibes. If they say something is unfair, push for the exact policy language, the dates, the numbers, the plan everyone agreed to at the time. If they claim a behavior is consistent, ask, when did that start? What happened immediately before? Can you point to one instance you remember clearly? Short questions, precise terms, and a calm cadence compress emotion and widen the space for truth. If the other person deflects, refocus with a clarifying question like, so your point rests on one example. Can we identify a pattern across a week or a month? You'll keep the tempo and reduce the chance you're swept away by momentum. You'll see it work in real life. With a spouse who says you never help, Start with specifics. Which chores are you counting as yours? Was last night's dish duty part of your count? What exactly would help you feel supported this week? Then layer in a workable solution. If first take the dishes on Tuesday and Thursday, would you take Friday and Saturday? If yes, could we try it for 2 weeks and reassess? The aim isn't to score points but to illuminate gaps and align expectations. With a raise, the questions shift to value and metrics. What measurable targets would justify a raise? If first hit them by the end of the quarter, what is the process for approval? Who signs off and on what timeline? You guide the conversation toward a clear, actionable path rather than a stalemate. The vibe is steady, not sneaky. You don't steal the other person's voice. You illuminate it. If the other side grows defensive, soften your pace and redirect with a calm, factual question. What would you need to see next week to feel we are moving toward this? If they spark a heated moment, acknowledge the emotion briefly and return to the facts. First hear that this matters to you. Let's pin down the concrete steps and dates. The method creates a natural trap, but it's their words that trap themselves, not your sneer. It's about emotional intelligence as a tool, not theater. You win by clarity, fairness, and a path forward that both can accept, or at least understand. Trick 3. The play dumb tactic. Act confused so they have to over-explain and reveal their weak spots. Acting confused isn't accidental. It's the play dumb tactic people use to pry loose the other person's hidden assumptions. You pretend you don't get their premise, and suddenly they start over-explaining every detail. They pile up definitions, examples, and caveats until the ground beneath their position feels firmer, even if it isn't. People who worship the aura of being logical eagerly oblige, because admitting confusion feels like surrender, and they'll fill the silence with enough explanation to sound convincing. You let them talk, and you keep your own voice steady and unhurried. Now watch how it unfolds in a real-life scene. You're arguing with a spouse about who handles what around the house. You tilt your head, blink, and murmur, "Wait, first am not sure, first follow." When you say you take care of the bills, do you mean this month or the last 2? They explain, with steps and costs and receipts, as if you're testing a hypothesis. They justify yesterday's decision as if it were a flawless blueprint for the future. The more they insist, the more you notice the gaps. A policy they cited isn't theirs, or a line item that doesn't match the actual numbers, or a principle that only works when everything goes their way. You didn't threaten or interrupt. You simply kept asking for the specifics they want to avoid. And when they reveal those gaps, you've got something concrete to press on rather than a vague moral about being reasonable. To use this tactic effectively, your aim isn't to humiliate but to illuminate. Mirror their explanations back to them in bite-sized questions. So, your rule is 10th, correct? What's the exact source for that rule? How would this apply if Y happened? You're not attacking their intelligence. You're forcing them to articulate precisely what they're standing on. The risk they reveal is the risk you want them to face. If they stumble, you don't gloat. You summarize the weak spot clearly and transform it into a negotiation point. This is how you steer from generalities to a concrete ask, whether you're negotiating a raise or redefining a shared duty. But be wary of turning the room into a theater of confusion. If you sense the other person genuinely can't explain without anno domini hominum or evasion, switch gears. Demand clarity with simple benchmarks, timelines, quantities, the exact rule, a reference. Keep the atmosphere under control with neutral tone and direct questions rather than loud interruptions or sarcasm. And if you're the one being played, resist the trap by insisting on transparency. Put constraints on the conversation, request written points, and set a follow-up time to review what was agreed. The tactic works best when it's anchored to specifics, not vibes. If you use it with restraint, you'll translate a murky premise into a solid, actionable path forward, without becoming the person who loves to pretend they don't get it. Trick 4. The whispering rule. When they shout, you whisper. It forces them to stop screaming to hear you. Facts first. Loud voices hijack thinking. When someone shouts, they prime you to respond with heat, not clarity. Your job is to break that pattern, not mirror it. A whisper changes the physics of a dispute. It stealthily lowers the emotional volume and nudges the other person toward listening rather than shouting. It's counterintuitive, but the moment you drop your own volume, you steal their loudness advantage and redirect attention to the content, not the noise. Now the practical move set. When the other person raises their voice, you switch to a whisper immediately. No time to argue about seconds. Speak softly, slowly, and with purpose. Use short, precise phrases that invite cooperation rather than defense. For instance, say something like, "First want to understand. Can you tell me what's most important to you about this?" Then pause. Silence is part of the tactic. It pressures them to fill the quiet with actual substance. Keep your shoulders relaxed, your breath even, and your eyes steady. A whisper is not a scream in disguise. It's a reset button for the brain. Here are concrete ways to apply it in real life. With a spouse arguing about chores, lower your voice and say, "First, you're upset about the laundry schedule. Let's pick one thing to fix today, and we'll split it fairly." They'll lean in, because they have to hear you to respond. In a salary discussion, when the room grows tense, whisper, "First, I'd like to understand your budget constraints and share my numbers when you're ready." Then present a simple, believable plan and invite feedback rather than resistance. In a team quarrel over a deadline, murmur, "Let's agree on what success looks like and map out the steps. What's the first action you'd like to see from me?" The psychology behind it is dirty in a charming way. Whispering disrupts the momentum of a heated exchange and signals that you're in problem-solving mode, not defending a position. It also forces the other person to regulate their own arousal to hear you, which often reduces hostility. People who pride themselves on being logical forget that logic requires attention and processing, not domination. When you whisper, you raise the odds that the next move is a rational, cooperative one, not a stubborn escalation. A few guardrails to keep this humane and effective. If the shouting continues after a couple of whispers, propose a short break and set a time to resume. Boundaries aren't surrender. They're a smarter problem-solving tool. After you calm things down, summarize what you heard in clear terms and outline concrete next steps. Then follow through. The whisper is a moment-to-moment craft, not a magic spell. Practice it with small, everyday disagreements so it feels natural when stakes rise. And yes, you'll look unfazed, even smugly confident. But that's the point. You want control of the tempo, not the other way around. Trick 5. Labeling emotions. Say, "It seems like you're frustrated." It disarms them instantly. Labeling emotions works because people hear feelings before they hear arguments. "It seems like you're frustrated," and that simple line shifts the rhythm of the conversation instantly. The move signals you're tracking their inner state, not just firing off a rebuttal. When you name the emotion, you give them permission to lower their guard and you keep control of the tempo. Don't overdo it or sound like a ventriloquist. Sincerity is the key, not a parlor trick. Observe first, then label, then respond. Are they frustrated, overwhelmed, or anxious about the outcome? Pick the closest fit and deliver it with a calm, even tone. "It seems like you're frustrated about the schedule," or "It seems like you're overwhelmed by the timeline." A pause after the label is sacred. Let them hear the emotion you named. Then ask a precise question that redirects toward a solution. What would help right now? You're not arguing with their mood. You're inviting them to channel it into a concrete next step. If they push back, repeat the label softly and adjust if needed. Maybe it's concern rather than frustration, so you say, "It seems like you're concerned. Tell me what would ease that." Think of practical uses in common life scenes. With a spouse about a mishap, lead with a label, not a jab. "It seems like you're frustrated that the plan changed last minute. First get that. First'd feel the same. Now we can fix it." Then propose a simple fix, a revised schedule, a shared checkpoint, a small compromise that respects both sides. In a raised discussion, you can soften the air without surrendering your position. "It seems like you're frustrated with how the feedback landed. Let's unpack that and set one concrete milestone you'll see progress on in the next quarter." The goal is to move from blame to clarity, from emotion to action, without turning the room into a courtroom. Avoid turning labeling into a performance. If the emotion you name isn't accurate, you'll look like you're guessing and you'll erode trust fast. Keep it honest, short, and anchored in the moment. Use phrases that foreground your own stance after the label. "It seems like you're frustrated. First want to fix that because your input matters." Then pair it with a concrete ask or offer. "Here's what first can change now," or "Here's a step we can try together." The effect is twofold. You validate feelings and you steer toward a tangible outcome, which is precisely what the other person secretly wants walking into a debate. Less heat, more resolution, fewer wasted breaths. You'll notice the room relaxes just enough to hear the next words you choose. And yes, the smoother you pull this off, the more you'll be perceived as in control without ever needing to shout down a single thought. Trick 6. The us vs problem frame. Stop sitting opposite them. Sit next to them, mentally. Humans do better when they feel they are on the same team chasing a shared goal. The us vs problem frame isn't trickery. It's a shift in the narrative you use before you say a single line. Instead of staring across the table like two rivals, you shift to a stance that says we are in this together against a common obstacle. You sit next to them mentally, and if you can manage the same physical angle, great, shoulder to shoulder, not shelf to shelf across the divide. The problem becomes the enemy, not the person in front of you. When you adopt that posture, you lower defenses and open the door to real solutions. To put it into practice, lead with a genuine shared goal and then name the hurdle plainly. We both want a smooth evening, but the current pile of tasks is the bottleneck. The language is crucial. Use we, us, our, not you or first. Then invite their view with a crisp prompt. What part of this bothers you the most? Listen, mirror what you hear, and paraphrase it back so they feel understood. That isn't surrender. It's information gathering for a joint plan. After they see you're aligned with their concerns, you present options as steps we can take together, not as commands you're delivering. For a raise, you might say, we both want this team to perform at its best, and the gap between merit and compensation is the obstacle we need to clear. Then propose a concrete path, a measurable milestone, a timeline, and a review point. The moment you frame the conversation as us against the problem, your tone shifts from verdict to partnership. You acknowledge constraints, you offer trade-offs, and you keep the pace moving with collaborative momentum. Phrases like, let's try this week and see how it goes, or if we tweak this part, we'll likely unlock the result we want, keep the dynamic proactive. You might even co-create a minimal viable plan. We test 10th for 2 weeks, adjust Y, and then reassess. The mental side is as important as the words. Mirror their energy, maintain steady eye contact, lean in slightly, and nod to show you're in the same boat with them, not tugging at their rope in the opposite wind. Watch for cracks in the frame and be ready to repair them without tearing the alliance apart. If they drift into a personal attack, bring it back to the shared problem with a calm reset. First hear you. The problem we are solving is how to get this done without burning out either of us. Don't let the debate tilt into blame. Anchor it to evidence and outcomes. End with clarity. Agree on one concrete next step, assign responsibility, and set a check in time. When you close like that, you'll notice it's more about steering together through the mess than defeating the other person. And yes, it works better with a touch of wit for the stubborn logicians who pretend numbers alone decide everything. They'll still be fond of their spreadsheets, but the results come faster when you fight the right foe, the problem, not the person. Trick 7. Silence. The most brutal weapon. Pause for 4 seconds and watch them crumble. Silence is a measurable variable in dialogue. Humans rush to fill the gap, so a deliberate pause can steer the entire conversation without you saying a single extra word. When you let the moment hang, the other person starts to reveal what they really think or fear, not what they're trained to say. The brain dislikes unresolved questions and unresolved stakes, so silence becomes a pressure point without you having to raise your voice. After you've stated your point, stay quiet. Breathe. Count to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, and resist the urge to fill the space with filler phrases. If they speak, listen intently without interrupting. The pause isn't a trap for them to crumble. It's your signal that you're confident enough to let them speak and reveal their constraints. Your calm becomes a contrast to their impulse to over-explain or double down. The moment you jump in with more words, you dilute the leverage you earned by choosing not to flood the air with talk. Consider a home argument about chores. You lay out a clear expectation, then you wait. 4 seconds may feel like an eternity to you, but it's a chance for your partner to articulate their real reservations or propose a practical compromise. If they admit they're overwhelmed, you can reframe the conversation toward a realistic schedule. If they insist, you can acknowledge their point and pose a clarifying question that forces them to address the barrier directly. The silence gives you time to think and them a moment to reveal the true blocker. Now apply it to a raise at work. You present measurable results, precise contributions, and a fair market benchmark. Then you pause. Let the room fill with the quiet. Their response will often hinge on how you carry that pause. Eye contact steady, posture open, throat unfrozen. The 4-count silence can push them to fill the gap with something concrete, a number, a timeline, a commitment. If they push back, you don't argue with more force. You invite data or a follow-up meeting. If they soften, you've gained clarity without shouting. The trick isn't cruelty, it's control over pace and attention, which is the currency of persuasive conversation. Arguing is a game. Play with your head, not your ego. In most arguments, psychology trumps raw logic. That means the winner isn't the person with the sharpest point, but the one who shapes emotions, timing, and the perceived fairness of the outcome. The conclusion is simple. Arguing is a game. You win by playing with your head, not your ego. Plan before you speak, anticipate objections, and detach from your need to be proven right. If you treat it as a duel of dignity, you lose. Play with your head by mapping the other side's map of the world. Ask questions that coax their reasoning into the light instead of letting it hide behind certainty. Label emotions instead of mimicking them, then redirect toward concrete outcomes. Time your moves to moments when they're open, not when they're exhausted. Show them you're in the alliance business, not the victory business. If some self-proclaimed logician demands a formal proof, smile and pivot to practical lines of agreement. With a spouse, you don't win by winning the argument. You win by winning the arrangement. Propose a fair redistribution of chores with a clear horizon and a follow-up check-in after a couple of weeks. If they resist, offer a genuine concession that preserves your core need and preserves momentum. When you ask for a raise, present a compact value case, concrete contributions, measurable impact, and a plan for continued growth. Offer a time-bound review and a fallback option that limits risk for both sides. You'll notice that you aren't pleading. You're negotiating from an anchor of value. Endgame discipline matters more than it feels. Summarize what you agreed to in plain terms, record it, and schedule a short follow-up. If you walk away with a better arrangement, great. If not, you leave with a clear path and a retried approach. The trick is to treat every exchange as shaping reality, not proving a point. That is how you win more often while keeping a shred of your sanity. Alright, here's the ending you can actually use. You want to win the argument without turning the room into a courtroom? The moves are simple in concept and ruthless in practice. Define your goal and the best outcome. Listen more than you talk. Frame your case as a story they actually want to hear. Ask the right questions to edge toward agreement. Ride the room's energy with your timing and tone. Acknowledge valid points and reframe objections as doors you open. Then close with a concrete next step that benefits both of you. We've all been there, arguing with a spouse about chores, asking for a raise, or just trying to be heard after a long day. The difference isn't some magic theory. It's emotional intelligence with a dash of swagger. The logical crowd might cling to data and hope the truth wins, but people buy what they feel matters to them. You give them a reason that aligns with their values, and you guide the conversation there, without drowning in jargon or drama. Yes, first I'll admit the swagger helps. If you want the practical edge, stop debating to be right and start debating to reach a choice everyone can live with. Practice your lines, sharpen your questions, and time your pauses like you're conducting a symphony, not hammering through a pile of facts. If you found this useful, hit subscribe, drop your most memorable argument in the comments so we can dissect it, and share this with a friend who swears data beats vibes. In the next video, we'll go deeper into turning objections into opportunities, how to spot a bluff without turning into a mind reader, and ways to keep agreements sticky in work and home. Until then, you don't have to be loud to win, you just have to be precise.